You can start whenever you're ready.
Great, thanks. Hi, everyone. So welcome to the February 15th meeting of the CB6 Housing and Homelessness Committee. My name is Abby Kruzmark. I'm the vice chair of the committee. The meeting is called to order at 6:32 p.m. Tonight, we are joined by Community Associate Alexander Crawford. Members of the public, you can raise any questions or comments that you have through the Q&A feature of Zoom. If there is time following the committee's discussion, we will field questions from the public. Committee members, we still need a minutes taker for tonight's meeting. So if you can take minutes tonight, please raise your hand through Zoom now. And just a reminder, you all should have received an email from the board office with a link to a doodle sign-up sheet for minutes takers at your committee meetings in 2022. For your convenience, the link to the sign-up sheet is being posted in the chat right now. Any takers? The minutes is much easier now because we have the recording. Neil, how do you feel about taking minutes?
I've kept my video off. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, thanks, Neil. You're off the hook for a little while.
Yeah,
Perfect.
No problem.
We will now take attendance by roll call. Alexandra will conduct the roll call.
Committee members, I will call your name and you will unmute yourselves. When your name is called, please say present. I will announce if there is quorum. Neil Barclay.
Present.
Abigail Kruzmark.
Present.
Rich Mintz.
Present.
Anju Suresh.
Anju will not be coming tonight.
Okay. Corinne Vanderdonk. I also know Corinne will not be joining us tonight. Sandra Leftoff. Maura Wong. Eric Goldberg.
Present.
Michael Devereaux.
Present.
And Sandra, are you there? Okay. Well, we have a quorum for tonight.
Sandra is expected.
Okay. Maybe she'll join later in the meeting, but we do have a quorum, so.
Perfect, thank you. So the agenda for tonight's meeting was distributed ahead of time by the board office and is reflected on the screen before you. If there is no objection, we will adopt the agenda. Members of the committee, if you object to adopting the agenda, you may raise your hand through Zoom. Seeing no objections, the agenda for tonight's meeting is adopted. Please note the minutes from the January 18th Housing and Homelessness Committee are still being reviewed and therefore will be up for adoption at next month's March committee meeting. So now we're going to set some ground rules. So in order to conduct an efficient meeting, no one may speak until granted the floor. Committee members, if you have a question about committee business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand through Zoom. The chat function should not be used for committee business or questions about agenda topics. All such remarks should be made on the record by raising your hand through Zoom. Chat should only be used to alert us to any technical difficulties you are having or to state in writing information like an email address that was already stated aloud on the record during the meeting. When a committee member is given the floor to speak, I will identify you and you can unmute yourself so that you can speak. Finally, we are required by New York State law to have a transcript of the meeting, so please keep your questions and comments succinct and germane to the discussion. So without further ado, we have our first agenda item as the discussion of a new safe haven shelter at East 15th Street and Irving Place. So we're joined by several members of Breaking Ground, as well as the Department of Homeless Services. So I don't know who is going to speak, but I will put myself on mute and let you take it away.
Hi, I would, this is me, let me introduce myself. I'm Leilani Irving. I'm the Manhattan Borough Director for the Department of Social Services. And I'm joined by our phenomenal, wonderful provider, Breaking Ground. I'll allow folks to introduce themselves, but first just kind of want to preference the conversation. So tonight we're giving a formal community notification regarding a safe haven that's currently open and operating at the location you mentioned earlier, which is 123rd East 15th Street. And this is going to be a safe haven site that's accommodating 100 single adults. And that could be male adults or female adults. So both genders, however folks identify themselves, are welcomed here. And the provider, the operator of this site is Breaking Ground, who is joined with us this evening. They'll be giving a presentation shortly about this project. For those who are new to the conversation and unfamiliar with what a safe haven model is, I just kind of want to give a quick top line, one-liner, if I can, a description about what a safe haven model is. Traditionally, this model was created to accommodate our most vulnerable, entrenched street homeless population. We find that typically individuals who live on the street are less likely to want to come into standard shelter for a number of reasons. I mean, a safe haven model does not, it allows folks to come in as they are. Individuals will not lose their bed placement as you would in standard shelter if you get timed out, meaning if you don't return back to the site within a day or two. Here at a safe haven, you will not lose your bed. In standard shelter, you would lose your bed. Also, at a safe haven, there is no curfew. So this, the way in which the street homeless population works and operates, it's more accommodating to, the way I'm trying to carefully word this is, you know, the way that they live and the way the limited restrictions, so to say, that exists at a safe haven is more attractive and more appealing to this population. So I'm just going to pause there, and I'm going to now turn it over to Breaking Ground, who's a phenomenal outreach provider. Breaking Ground has a contract with the Department of Homeless Services. They also do, separate from this project, they have an arm with the agency where they exclusively deal with street homeless outreach. They do direct outreach to vulnerable New Yorkers throughout the borough of Manhattan and other boroughs. They engage individuals to encourage them to come off the street and come into models like a safe haven or stabilization bed to help individuals get off the street and to stabilize them, with the ultimate goal, of course, being to ensure that we try to connect folks to permanent housing or supportive housing, some form or type of housing, or to connect them to different entitlements and benefits if qualified. And if they work with our caseworkers, work with Breaking Ground, providers like Breaking Ground, we can basically assist them with neutralizing and stabilizing their lives and getting them acclimated. So I'm going to pause there. I'm going to turn it over to Breaking Ground and introduce themselves. Breaking Ground, take it away. I'm not sure who wants to lead and kick it off. But I'm going to turn it over to you guys now.
All right, thanks, Leilani. I'll kick it off. Hi, everyone. My name is Erin Madden. I'm the Vice President for Programs at Breaking Ground. The Programs Department provides our direct social services for all of Breaking Ground. Joined with me tonight is Roberta Solomon, who's our Deputy Vice President, Kiana Serrano, our Assistant Vice President directly overseeing the Safe Haven, as well as Heather Fry, our Assistant Vice President who oversees our Midtown Manhattan outreach team. Our presentation tonight, we're going to share a little bit with you about Breaking Ground, who we are and what we do. We're then going to turn it over to Roberta and Heather to talk specifically about our street outreach team in Manhattan. One of the things that makes safe havens very unique from traditional shelter is that our outreach teams really control the front door to our shelter. These are clients that we know, that we work with for a long time before they even come to our front door. So we want to introduce you to our street outreach team and how we provide provide street outreach in Manhattan and the Manhattan Outreach Consortium. And then we'll speak specifically to how we operate safe havens, because we have several throughout the 3 boroughs, Manhattan, Queens, and Brooklyn. Or sorry, well, we have a drop-in center in Queens. And then speak more about the services we are providing on site at the Seafarers location. So Breaking Ground was started in 1990 to address the homelessness crisis that was happening in the Times Square area at the time. Breaking Ground purchased the Times Square Hotel, which was a dilapidated building on the corner of 43rd and 8th Avenue, and transformed that into over 650 units of permanent, supportive, and affordable housing. To this day, the Times Square is one of the largest supportive housing sites in the country, and Breaking Ground continues to be one of the largest supportive housing providers and operators throughout the US. We have over 4,000 units of supportive housing right now, with hundreds more in the pipeline coming down. What makes Breaking Ground unique, I think, in the world of New York City social services is our values. Breaking Ground believes that everyone deserves a home, and that is one of our guiding principles. We believe in housing first and use that when we're providing street outreach services, whether it's transitional housing as well as our permanent housing. What housing first means is that housing is a right, not a privilege, and that you do not need to earn it. Just by being here, you deserve to have housing, and we're going to support and work with you until we can get there. We also believe that data tells a story. We're constantly looking at our programs and evaluating them to make sure that our services are meeting the population that we're serving, that it's effective, and also constantly looking to see what new best practices we could be using at our sites to help our clients transition out of homelessness and into permanent housing more quickly. The other big thing is Breaking Ground never gives up. We never give up on our clients. We'll always keep coming back and keep trying to support them and work with them wherever they are to help them move through the transition and get them into permanent housing. And so although Breaking Ground started as an operator and developer of permanent supportive housing, we also, starting in 2007, began to work at the other end of the spectrum, which is where our street outreach teams come in. So right now we provide 24/7 street outreach to all of Brooklyn and Queens and Midtown Manhattan. And our teams are targeting the most vulnerable people, and those are chronically street homeless individuals. We meet them where they are, we reduce barriers to coming inside and connect them to services. We also operate a drop-in center, which is in Richmond Hill, Queens, which it also is open 24/7 a day. It provides 3 meals. We encourage our clients to come in inside whenever they want to come in off the street, especially right now when we have very cold weather. We also operate over 500 beds of transitional housing throughout Brooklyn, Queens, and Manhattan. And we'll talk more about how we operate them and specifically what we do inside our buildings and what I think makes Breaking Ground Safe Havens unique. As with all of our programs, we are constantly pairing them with connection to benefits, to medical and substance use referrals, primary care, psychiatry, as well as benefits assistance. So right now I'm going to turn it over to Roberta and Heather, and they're going to talk specifically about our Street to Home program, which is what we call our street outreach programs.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. I'm Roberta Solomon. I'm the Deputy Vice President of Programs. Kiana, there we go. So I want to give you a little overview of our street outreach program. So we start off by meeting people exactly where they are, meeting with the most entrenched chronically street homeless, and it's all about engagement and building relationship, building rapport. And that could take one meeting or it could take years. But as Erin said, we're persistent and we do everything to help people trust us. And it's all about mutual respect and meeting people where they are. Part of that process is to complete a full needs assessment, which is individualized to each and every person and is the roadmap for how we can best help somebody as they transition from street to home. Many of our clients utilize a safe haven or a stabilization bed or a church bed or a drop-in center as we continue through the process. And we consider that a real win. If we can get somebody to come inside and come off the street while we're helping them to access permanent housing, that's definitely a win. And as both Erin and Leilani mentioned, often our clients don't want to access traditional shelter. So all of these other alternatives of having people come inside is really important to cultivate. While this is happening, we help gather all relevant documents. It could be an ID, it could be a birth certificate. We help link people to services. We have street medicine and street psychiatry, which actually serves people in their street locations. We also help link our clients to other providers. We work on benefits, we work on entitlements, we work on legal services, whatever the individual needs that we've determined during the needs assessment. And everything that we are gathering and all the supports that we are building help us complete a housing application packet, which everybody needs as they apply for permanent housing. The goal is to find permanent housing, whether it's a supportive apartment that has on-site services or a low-cost affordable apartment, or even having people reconnect with their families. We help people prepare for housing interviews. We walk them through the entire process. We're with them every step of the way. And once they are accepted, we guide them through the final steps, the move-in, everything they need to successfully move in. And then it's not on the slide, but we also provide aftercare. So our street outreach teams continue to work with the housing provider and the client for a minimum of 3 months, but often much longer to ensure a smooth transition. And now I'm going to turn it over to Heather, who's going to go into a little more detail about our Manhattan Street outreach. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. So just to kind of build on what Roberta and Erin have shared so far, our street to home model is one that really, it's a 24/7, 365 work that we're doing with our outreach teams. Our catchment is specifically Midtown Manhattan. And so that's within the Manhattan Outreach Consortium, which has the outreach contract for the entire island of Manhattan. Our specific area is 23rd Street to 59th Street, river to river. And just in terms of the work that our teams are doing, in addition to that, we're also providing really comprehensive client-centered case management. So, as has already been mentioned, we're really connecting clients to an array of services and resources and supports. We're working with our clients to gather documents needed to apply for housing. Again, we're providing medical and psychiatric care on the street, in the office, wherever it's needed. If appropriate, we're linking folks to substance use treatment or other additional services. We're working with them to reconnect them or reunify them with family, if that's appropriate and something that they're looking for help with. And of course, during extreme and inclement weather, we're regularly checking on our most vulnerable high-risk clients and assessing them for safety at really high frequencies. And I think this has been touched on a little bit already, that really the trust building and the relationship building is paramount to the work. We really utilize a harm reduction approach, and our teams are working tirelessly to build that trust with the individuals that they are encountering on the street. We're well aware that for many of the people we meet, it's going to take some time to earn that trust, and but it's an imperative and critical part of the process, and it's an approach that we've had a lot of success with over and over and over again. For many of the individuals we encounter, we know that they've likely experienced a lot of challenges navigating social safety net systems in the past. And that really, may initially contribute to any initial reticence that they may have upon meeting us for the first time, and perhaps even beyond that. So, but regardless, we are maintaining that assessment. We're doing that, starting that early on, right from the very jump. And it's ongoing. It's an ongoing process as we continue to build that trust, as we continue to get to know them better. And our teams are really learning about the individuals that they're encountering, that their individual histories, what brought them to the street, what their goals are. The more that they're able to gather that clear picture of the unique needs and vulnerabilities, as well as the preferences, that helps us to be able to understand what level of support that is most appropriate for them and that they will accept. We, as has already been said, our jam is all about housing and bringing people inside. And, the ultimate goal is always to bring someone inside. Much of the time that first move is to a low barrier type of a setting, such as a safe haven. And, while we're continuing to work toward the bigger goal, obviously, of obtaining permanent housing, we're able to help keep them safer in a supportive environment that ultimately can also help ready them for permanent housing. I think just a couple of stats that are up here now that I think really felt important to us is that, even despite the myriad of challenges that this pandemic has presented over the last now almost 2 years, that even just within calendar year 2021 alone, Street to Home Manhattan has made, and I think it's astounding, really, despite everything that has gone on in the last few years. They have made 67 permanent housing placements and 320 transitional housing placements. That's our work in a nutshell.
Thanks, Heather and Roberta. So now a little bit to talk about our safe haven transitional housing. Breaking Ground has been operating transitional housing since 2002, when we first opened the Andrews Safe Haven down on the Bowery. Once again, we purchased a dilapidated, what was sort of slum hotel down there and rehabilitated it. And now it's 146 men's safe haven that's located down on the Bowery and Prince Street. What makes Breaking Ground Safe Havens, I think, really unique is we also only operate safe havens where we are also doing the outreach. We have found time and time again that our clients want to stay in the places where they are. They want to be in a place that they know and is familiar to them, which is close to where they're currently sleeping. So we specifically provide transitional housing in the places where we're also doing outreach, which also helps build that continuity of care. Like Heather and Roberta mentioned, trust is so incredibly important for these clients. They've often been through this system multiple times, may have even been in permanent housing before and fell out of it. And so that's why we do everything we can to make this time different and this time the last time. And that's why we have our outreach teams. They actually work with our safe haven staff. Once a client is placed inside the safe haven, they will continually meet ongoing to check in, to partner with both the safe haven staff and the outreach team to help the client move forward, whether that's escorting them to appointments, being present for case conferences, and then also going with them on housing interviews. And we move them together when they're finally able to move into permanent housing. Both our safe haven and outreach teams are there to help that client through the transition, as well as we do provide aftercare so that we can ensure our clients stay in permanent housing. One of the things that is, I think, really remarkable for Breaking Ground is right now we have a 98% retention rate for our permanent supportive housing tenants, which is just remarkable. And these are folks who experienced homelessness for 10, 20 years prior to working with us. And so Breaking Ground is not able to get people out of homeless, but really break the cycle of chronic homelessness for many individuals. When we're operating our safe havens, we want this to be a place where clients want to be, where they want to spend as much time as they can working with us and providing with as much services as we can. We are never asking clients to leave. We encourage them to stay on site as much as we can by providing a safe, clean environment that clients want to be in. And we provide key resources for them. And we provide robust on-site services, including psychiatry, primary care, supportive counseling, as well as recreational and leisure activities. The big thing for safe havens is always, we don't want to create any barriers for someone coming in. Our goal is to reduce them to be as easy a transition as possible from living on the street and meeting them where they're at and constantly working with them to keep them inside. So now I'm going to turn it over to Roberta and Kiana, and they're going to share a little bit about specifically about the Seafarers residents and how we're going to operate that program over on 15th and Irving.
Thank you, Erin. So Seafarers will serve 100 individuals, both men and women. The bulk of our rooms will be private rooms, which is such a plus. Again, an objection to traditional shelter is the congregate setting, where oftentimes there are many people in one large room, which is not a comfortable situation to be in often. So the idea that we have private rooms or semi-private is definitely encouraging and welcoming, and people want to take advantage of that. We will have 14 clinical staff, including licensed social workers. It's a 1:15 staff to client ratio. We follow all of the best practices, evidence-based practices. Several of them have already been mentioned. Person-centered approach, person and environment, housing first, harm reduction, motivational interviewing, critical time interventions, etc. We have on-site maintenance 24/7, and we also have 24/7 security, supervision, and housekeeping services. The social services that we provide are full wraparound case management services that include supportive counseling, linkages and referrals, benefits and entitlements, help accessing employment, education, anything and everything our client fields, whatever their goals are, to help them succeed and move forward. We also provide 3 full meals a day and a snack. We will have an on-site medical suite with psychiatric, nursing, and primary care, which is huge because although the goal, of course, is to access services in the community and link our clients to community services, having those on-site medical and psych providers make a huge difference in the lives of our clients and in moving them forward to permanent housing. There's also a private outdoor space at the Seafarer Safe Haven, which is a great addition and is really helpful for our clients who might want to smoke outside. And we also provide recreational activities, wellness groups, libraries, gardening, etc. During COVID, we've had to pivot to trying to do a lot of this virtually, but as we are hopefully coming out of the pandemic more and more, we are finding safe ways to reestablish our groups and to use our outdoor space. We are partners with the community. We are really engaged with the community and our neighbors. Our staff our residential aides do community rounds in line with our Breaking Ground Good Neighbor policy. And that means more than just our front door. We really do rounds wherever our clients might be or might congregate. And we adjust our rounds according to who we have with us at any given time. We also do cleaning in front of our building as well as our neighbor's building, and that's promoting our good neighbor policy as well as encouraging our clients to have pride in their community. We also develop a community advisory board, which we will be looking to do soon, where we invite members of the community to work with us on a regular basis to address a wide variety of issues and creative problem solving. And now I'm going to turn it over to Kiana, who's going to give you even a little bit more detail. Kiana, are you on mute?
Sorry about that. Good evening, everyone. So here you'll see an aerial view of the Seafarers International House, which is at 15th Street in Irving Place. One of our focuses is really building community partnerships and really accessing the community resources to link our clients with medical care. We are going to be providing on-site services, but we do have partnerships and relationships with Mount Sinai which is at 16th Street. So we've referred clients for specialty care there. We've also developed a partnership with the Institute for Family Health, which is on 17th Street. The great thing about that practice is that they have sites throughout New York City. So ideally, we'll get clients linked with that outpatient clinic. And then whenever they get placed into permanent supportive housing or move into an apartment, then they're able to just transfer to a location that's close to where their permanent housing is, so that there is continuity of care when it comes to their primary care and specialty care. Also, we have a partnership with New York Public Library, where in many of our safe havens, we have a lending library so that clients can have access to reading materials on site and just really foster that community, the sense of community and ownership, and also just providing those services and activities on site so that, we're really like that one-stop shop where everyone can come in, they're not forced to leave, they can just stay in their room all day. The majority of rooms are private rooms. And I just want to go back a couple slides just to show you, this is actually one of the rooms at Seafarers. So this is one of the doubles. The majority of the rooms are singles, but for folks, we are able to accommodate. This room here has a private bathroom. So for individuals that need to have access to a private bathroom, it's really great that we're able to provide that in a double setting. But the majority of rooms are singles, especially in the pandemic. It's really great to be able to offer them that, just to have a more safe environment for our clients. And I think, we also have a partnership with Lower East Side Harm Reduction, where we get training for staff, also get resources for clients to get them linked. Also, if clients want to get engaged in day programming so that, they're doing things during the day, we also have partnerships to get them connected with those resources as well. I think that's everything that I wanted to mention. So thank you all for being here today. We have our General Seafarers phone number here, so you can feel free to give a call. That's our front desk. It's 212-387-0367. You can also visit our website, is breakingground.org. Here is Erin's email. It's emadden@breakingground.org. We're also on social media on Facebook and Twitter, so please feel free to look us up. And I know we want to be able to take any questions that you all have.
Amazing. Thank you so much for the presentation. This was really informative. I just have a couple of logistical questions, and I see that Michael has his hand up. First, I was just wondering if the site is open yet, or is it going to be open soon? What's the timeline there?
So it's currently open right now. It's not at full capacity. It was previously operating as an emergency stabilization bed since July. And in January, we made the transition to a safe haven.
Great. And then, yeah, please do send us any CAB information, Community Advisory Board.
Oh, definitely.
Once you have it, I'm sure Rich and the Community Board would love to be involved in that. And then the number you had up on the screen, the 212-387 number, would that be the general number to call if anyone had, concerns or questions about programming or anything like that? Is that a good number to reach you?
So that number is answered 24 hours a day. If there's something going on immediately in the community that you need an immediate response to, feel free to reach out to that number. If there are larger concerns that you guys would like to talk with us about, or even schedule a phone call with us or something like that, I would encourage you to reach out to us via email. We can also share I can share the email with everybody here and everyone's contact information for Roberta, Kiana, and Heather, so we can also respond that way.
Great. Michael, you have a question?
I do. Thank you so much for your presentation. I do believe you guys do a lot of good for the homeless community. The one concern I have is or a question actually I have is, did you guys, was any outreach to Washington Irving High School or Friends Academy, which are both a block away from here? Have they been brought into the conversation?
Lulani, do you want?
Want to
Yeah.
answer?
No, I don't believe we've engaged. Are those folks you think we should connect with?
I mean, I think with there being two schools right there, a block away, and, from experience, homeless shelters or, being brought up, it's usually the school is the biggest concern. I know Friends Academy is a private school, and I would just think that they should definitely be involved and know that there's something like this going in a block away from their school.
We actually met with students today from one of those schools. I forget which one. They're doing a project where they had to find a nonprofit, and then they're doing a presentation, and the winner of the presentation gets $5,000 to donate to the not-for-profit. So we met with one of the students from one of those schools today.
No, but we'll connect. We're happy to connect with anyone you think that we should connect with. So that'll be one of the schools.
That's really good to hear. I think I
Okay.
agree with Michael. Just the proximity of those schools, I think they would be good contacts. I'm also thinking of, I don't know the names off the top of my head, but I know there's a church that's very active in the community on Stuyvesant Park, which is right in that area, and also a synagogue. So those might be good contacts for you as well.
So if you don't mind, if there's any groups, civic groups, orgs you think that we should connect with, please just shoot me an email. What we do is standard notification. It's just a standard notification process that will go to the community board and elected officials. But if there's additional folks you think we should connect with and reach out to, we're more than welcome to do so. And more
Yeah,
than-
and we always want to provide everyone in the neighborhood with our information. So if there are concerns that come up, they know how they can reach us and share those with us. We do really strive to be a good neighbor in the community and be responsive to when issues come up, even if they maybe are not residents of our building. Our outreach team is nearby, and we partner with the other members of the Manhattan Outreach Consortium as well.
And Kiana put our emails in the chat.
Perfect. Alexander, can you grab those emails?
Yep.
Okay, great. I just have one more question if no one from the committee or the public has any questions. I was curious, I think Roberta, you mentioned that many of the individuals who utilize these services at the Safe Haven come from the neighboring sort of community, and they prefer to stay where they're already sort of bedding down. I'm just curious if that's true for this particular site. I used to live at 17th and Irving, so I know that there are many areas where there are street homeless in that area, and I'm just curious if you can confirm that the individuals who are going to be using the site are going to be from the surrounding area.
So many of the individuals will be, as we had noted, our outreach teams control access to the Safe Haven. So these are clients that we have been working with and are known to us and are connected to us. And we make referrals to the Safe Haven based on individual preference, people's particular needs, what the site has to offer. And often people, as noted, want to stay where they're bedding down, where their friends are, where they know the local coffee shop on the corner, where they feel comfortable, where they feel safe. So although maybe not every single solitary person who comes in will be from that exact community, many of them will be.
And when we were operating the site as an emergency stabilization bed, and Heather can speak to this, we placed numerous clients. I think the majority of our clients were from the Midtown Manhattan location. I think almost entirely.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Great, and I'm just seeing a request in the chat for Leilani. I know, this comes up frequently, but the individuals requesting a map of all the Manhattan locations where DSS currently provides shelter, supportive housing, drop-in centers, et cetera. So I I'm not sure if we have that data or if that's publicly available, but I just wanted to flag that and see if you had any response to that.
Yeah, so I can, if we have time, I'll pull the link that'll take folks to where drop-in centers are. As it relates to a map of where shelter sites are citywide, there is a map that the agency has, but it aggregates the data by number. It doesn't quantify it. It doesn't aggregate the data and by addresses due to client confidentiality. So the map that we have breaks it down. The data is aggregated by community board district, and it'll tell you the number of shelters, safe havens you have in your district, but it will not break down specific site locations and addresses. That upon the community board's request, the district manager's request, we share that exclusively with the district manager. So in elected official offices, they have that information, but I can share our general map just so that you can all see a visual of how sites are cited or where we are in respective of Manhattan, the borough.
Perfect, thank you. Yeah,
And
that's quick.
Yeah, I may not be able to pull that right away right now, but I will definitely send that over to you.
Okay, great. So yeah, members of the public, if you're interested in learning more about this, you can follow up with our office and we will be sure to connect you. And if any members of the public have questions, please submit them through the Q&A.
I see there's a question in the Q&A, sorry.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. So yeah, this was also a question I had. So I think Heather, you mentioned the Manhattan Outreach Consortium went from 23rd to maybe up to 90th or so. And this is below your area. So I was just curious how that would work, given that it's outside of the area that you had stated.
Sure. So I'll just kind of re-clarify. The Manhattan Outreach Consortium is essentially the oversight of all of the outreach providers that cover the entire island of Manhattan. Our particular catchment within that is 23rd Street to 59th Street, and that's river to river. So obviously part of our service area, our outreach area, is within this community board, although it does cut off at 23rd Street. So it's not, right down to 15th Street, but we work very, very closely, obviously, with particularly downtown Goddard, who covers the catchment below 23rd Street. And we have worked with them quite a bit as well. And so they are obviously very aware of this site. And, they are also, very much a referring entity into this location. So.
Yeah. Breaking Ground is one of 4 teams that consist of the Manhattan Outreach Consortium. So basically 4 different providers cover all of Manhattan. Breaking Ground is one of them. And we partner with the other 3 teams very closely in order to provide services throughout all of Manhattan.
In collaboration and communication. So although we technically are to 23rd Street, we are in constant contact with the teams that handle below 23rd Street.
Mm-hmm. And they also use a centralized database for each other. So they're constantly sharing information between the teams.
Great. Awesome. So I think this is not the end of the conversation, because we'll be following up with you about the CAB and, any data questions that might come up. So thank you all so much for being here, though. This was really great and very nice to meet all of you. Look forward to continued collaboration.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. We're very excited to be here and, be a community member and meet more people and see how we can work together.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
A pleasure.
So for members of the committee, we're not quite done yet, but everyone else, feel free to go.
Oops, sorry.
So,
yeah,
I think those were more or less addressed during our discussion, but JG Collins, if you have any further comments or questions, feel free to follow up with our office and we can put you in touch with the right information or individuals. Thanks so much.
Before I go, I put in the shelter intake locations. If you go to our website, it'll have more spelled out resources and information about shelter and intake. And I will email your board about the district-wide maps for the city.
Okay, great. Is
All right.
that, yeah, just for my own curiosity, is that something that you had shared with us previously and now it's updated, or is it data we haven't
Actually,
yet
not the
received?
most updated. Prefer to hold off to send you the most updated, but I can send you what we have now. So there's a lot of shelters that we've notified on, not
Right.
not specific to your district, but that has not been updated. So if you want the latest, I can send you the latest map.
Okay, yes, that would be really great. If you could send it to Alexandra, I don't know if you have her email, that would be great.
Yep. Okay. Will
Perfect.
do. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so our second agenda item, and I know we're approaching the hour, so we'll keep it brief, is a discussion on the expiration of the New York State eviction moratorium and tenant protections. And I haven't been following this closely, but I know Sandra looked into it somewhat. So Sandra, if you want to just share what you learned and see if we can come up with any next steps, that would be great.
Okay, so I didn't even know about it, honestly, until you talked about it last time. So I'm going to assume you all have talked about it and I shouldn't go into the background of what it is. Yes?
I may give a little overview
Oh,
because,
all right.
yeah, just for the clarification of everybody.
Okay, it's called good cause eviction, meaning that, and this really deals with anything that's not regulated, any apartment that's not regulated in the state, like stabilized and so on, that you need a good cause, that you can't raise the rent basically unconscionably on someone. You can still evict people for unacceptable behavior. So this is right now in both the Senate and the Assembly. Apparently it's been there for a few years. It's not surprising. And the part I was amazed at is their attempt to prevent unconscionable raises in rents, which I think is really a serious problem. And anybody's in in an apartment in which you have no controls. So I'll just mention that. So the issue is for this in this version, the rent can be raised only a maximum of 3% or 1.5 times the consumer price index for the year. This year, it's not such a good situation, but other years, with the consumer price index at 2%, that means same thing, you get a raise of 3%. So whichever one is higher is the maximum that you could raise it. That's a form of rent control on these apartments, which is quite a change from anything we've had. So not surprisingly, it has, it's not moving very fast. It's not moving at all. Apparently it is stuck in both the Senate and the Assembly. And I can tell you which. In the Assembly, it is, oh, wait a second. Hold on. It's stuck in committee. One is in the Judicial and the other is in the Housing Committees. Hasn't moved out. I spoke to someone from Liz Kruger's office. She's a big supporter of this, and a number of the representatives from our area, in Manhattan, support it. There's obviously a lot of pushback from real estate against it, and so they can't get it out of committee. So the plan is for this year is to put it in as part of the budget deliberation. So apparently it's not a single proposition, but it becomes part of the whole budget debate. And so then you negotiate on the various resolutions that are included with the budget. And that means that it's the governor's office, the Assembly, and the Senate, which all come up with their own quote budgets, but thrown in those budgets are also other resolutions. So the plan is to do it as part of the budget, see if it can go through with some, with some changes, and then be voted on as a package in the budget. Apparently, if that doesn't work, then in 2023 they will have to redo it entirely they can't get it through. So that's the background. That's what my understanding. The issue I asked what we could do as a board. Is there anything we can do? And the person I spoke to was really quite helpful. Said basically not. It's the issue. What's holding it up is not either our area, it's not in the city that it's a problem. It's in Long Island. The Democrats on Long Island are opposed to it. And so her position was we could do a resolution, but they actually need to get, they need to get other people out of the city area on board in it. So that was, I think that pretty much is, was the gist of what she was saying. Yeah, I can give you also the groups, specific, the Apartment Owners Advisory Council, the Westchester's Owners Association, and so on. They're, they are really lobbying strongly against it. Okay, that's whatever questions, if I can answer, I'd be happy to do it. Yeah, okay.
Any questions for Sandra?
Okay.
But it sounds like while a resolution would be helpful, it wouldn't be game changing. Is that that's my interpretation correct?
Yeah, that was my assumption. That's what it sounded like.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think the notion, it's just the whole notion of attempts to on market rates to have all these departments that are not controlled to begin to exercise control them seems so crucial, all across the city. People just get killed on that. And there's nothing pretty much they can do about it. It just seems like such an important issue. So yes, we could do a resolution.
Would you like to draft one up? Would you like to start drafting one up?
No, do I want to know? I just did one for the health.
Okay.
And
we won't make you do that one.
No, I absolutely do not want. Not that was we won't go into it, but I'm not right now. But I am really interested in the notion of what we might want to discuss regarding the issues of a market rate and the inabilities to control, that there really are no controls on that, what we call it market rate. If that's something that is something that we as a committee want to consider. I don't know.
Say no controls, do you mean in terms of price increases or in terms of eviction?
No, not in terms of evictions, but this thing basically says, it says, this is really taking a position of price control. That's what, or rent control on market rate apartments. That's what really startled me. So it's the evictions are, the end product, but this is really saying that we have no controls on the rents, and they can go up astronomically across the board on whatever level of of what renters are paying. And so it affects everybody, it affects all these apartments, which landlords, and it particularly, post-COVID, we assume it's going to go up even more so. So it's not the eviction part, it's the notion of some sorts of controls or any controls over where rents wind up going in this market rate. So of course, and again, it's a citywide issue. So that would be what I was really struck by.
Awesome. Thank you so much for looking into that. I didn't have much time to touch base with Rich, but I assume this is not, we'll keep discussing it, and let's see if we can get a resolution together. And it's definitely
okay.
Yeah, I mean, I would add quickly, and probably it's not an immediate need, but just to relatable story is certainly for me, a market rate tenant. I am waiting with just 60 days notice every year to find out whether I can remain in my apartment, my kids continue to go to the school they go to, right? There's just, on a relative basis, my instability is a lot less than many others, but still there's a piece that I am at the, with the whim of the landlord, really with just 2 months notice to have to rearrange my life. So I think that piece is real. And I think in terms of housing, there's probably a lot of other issues that we need to deal with, but this one is real, and something that we should be aware of, even if there's basic controls on how landlords interact with tenants, regardless of the rent, even around notice or amount of time, and that they need to share when there'll be a big increase over a certain amount, right? So clearly this year, expecting there's going to be astronomical increase, not just because of COVID, but there's a management company, bought our building, right? And I assume, they have intentions to monetize that. So, all those things go into it.
When
Sandra,
is
go ahead, Neil.
the budget discussion in Albany? When does that usually, I guess, wrap up? Is there a certain date? I don't know. Is it May?
No, it's apparently they begin the discussion in each group does its own thing, and then in March they get together, and in April it's then they vote. Then they've made all their deals. They vote on it in April, and then if this thing doesn't get into the budget in April, then they can do it as a single, as a single issue after that. But it will be April will be when it's actually voted on.
But as a single issue, it sounds like that's going to be difficult.
It's going to be a dead deal, is what
Right,
that
on
was
its
the
own.
impression.
Right. And so if there's a way that they could get it into the budget negotiations, I think that may be the best way to do
Yeah.
it. And I think Eric, he makes a really good point. And I think just overall, especially in our district, that I think that people are there's the possibility of people being pushed out because of the rent increases. And I think just as a city, we want different types of, economic classes, to be in the city, to not leave the city. And so I think that this is possibly something that we could look at while they are doing the budget resolutions, while they're negotiating this, then maybe we could, send a resolution to Albany or to see. What would you think? Would it go to the governor? Would it go to the Senate, Assembly?
Well, probably should go to each, right? I mean, it sounded certainly there's a big group in there is a group in the Senate, a number of senators who are supporting it. And, Kruger's office was saying they need more support. So I would imagine if there's a resolution, it wouldn't hurt why not send it to each branch?
I wonder what the numbers are for the support.
Yeah, that was interesting. And I want to also get back to Eric because I thought what he said was really wonderful and absolutely to the point. What the woman I spoke to said was they can't tell with how much support they have, that they're really struggling to find that out, but they really can't document it in a way that would leave them feeling comfortable. So that was the best I could find out.
Yeah, that will be interesting then with the negotiations, because on its own, as you had said, very unlikely. And I think rents are just going to go through the roof.
Yeah.
Probably now. Inordinate amounts of increases. So I think that's definitely something to consider.
Mm-hmm. I want to get back to what Eric, I just thought what you said was so completely on target about, you said it, well, I've got 60 days, but the other one is you have kids in school, kids have relationships with other kids. We're all, that's the healthy life you want for your family is a life that's got some stability to it, right? And that threat that you have trying to raise a family in the city, one would hope, we all deal with staying in place, right? And having a sense of community seems so crucial. So on that, that's citywide, I'm not really, again, I really am new to this. So my thought is, do you work with other community boards on something like this? Because this is just going on all over the city, to develop either resolution or positions, or do you work just within the board you're on? How does that happen? Or how do you proceed?
I have seen resolutions that were joint resolutions with other boards. I don't think it happens very frequently. So I think from the guidance that I've had being a member of the board, usually you want to target, local issues, things that matter to your district, but sometimes these issues aren't local, right? Like they affect more than one area. So yeah, Jesus, do you have your hand up?
Yes, I do. Sorry, I was not really meant to be here. I was just going to sort of lurk, because Alex can certainly manage this meeting all by herself. But if I can sort of offer my 2 cents, I think if this committee is genuinely interested in this topic, they probably should prioritize writing a resolution. I think Sandra has done some interesting homework and research on this and presented it to the committee in a way that piques interest. We see yet another member of the committee who is personally impacted by something like this. And I imagine that in a district like ours of, I don't know, 150,000 so people, that there are others who are similarly situated. What I would suggest, though, is that this could be a potentially interesting resolution to write, but the committee really needs to be behind it. It can't just be Sandra doing all the work or doing all the research, and then no one else really knows anything about it. I mean, there has to really be a team effort for the resolution, I think, to be meaningful and to potentially be impactful. From there, if it makes it out of the full board, you could convince the chair of this board to work with chairs of other boards to see if they would want to pass resolutions that are similar. If that happens, then it could perhaps be a topic for borough board, which is where all the Manhattan boards get together and they themselves can sometimes pass a resolution as a borough. But even, is it likely that one resolution from CB6 will make it up all the way to Albany, and then people will see the light and this thing will pass and everything will be better? Probably not. But at the very least, it will be a position of the board. And then that way, if the press comes asking the board chair, say, what does CB6 think about good cause eviction or the prospect of market rate apartments essentially being regulated, the chair would be able to say something because they would have he would have a resolution to go by. I generally think that fewer resolutions are better, because I think too many resolutions come out and then they're never thought of again. But it does seem like this is, in particular, is a topic that is super, super relevant to this particular district, where where this district has many more advantages and privileges than, say, other parts of this city, other community districts, but not so many that they aren't still vulnerable to being priced out in an instant. So that's what I would say.
Thank you for your input. I agree. I think, I even think, just having been on the board for a number of years, it is something powerful to pass a resolution, and then what happens to that resolution is it gets signed and it goes directly to our elected officials. So it is a pretty powerful statement that the committee was behind it, the board was behind it. I think this is what the community thinks. So I do think, even if it seems futile sometimes, passing a resolution it does put it on the record and it does get heard. So I definitely will chat about this with Rich, and we'll see, the best way for this to sort of move forward. Because I think, especially given the budget timeline, like the time is sort of now to get the resolution drafted and discuss it at committee. So yeah, thank you so much for all of your research, and we may come calling for your research when we go to write it.
I have one thought. I have two thoughts. One is, if we don't get this done for this vote, listening to it, I didn't think it was going to go through, quite honestly, but the issue seems to be so important in city life that to do it even after the fact. I'll take my usual pessimistic view. It's not going to get in. But it is something, and Jesus, I really appreciated what you said. Seems to me such a fundamental of what it does to people's lives in the city, that it would be something that we should consider pursuing, to be worked on, not in 2 months or a month, which is the deadline that would, you'd sort of the gun to your head, but really as a project to develop and go from there. Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I should have raised my hand. I'm sorry.
I didn't either.
I was just wondering, with you said Senator Kruger supports this. I'm just wondering what her office, if they would know what the possibility is of this being bundled into the budget negotiations. Like, would she sort of understand what's on the ground, as in the Assembly and the state Senate? Like, what is she hearing? Is there whispers that possibly it could be pushed in based upon what negotiations?
Yeah, I didn't get this. I couldn't read that in what she said. And I wouldn't have an answer, but I have a thought, which is, and I was going to ask you, I can get back in touch with this person and have her come and speak to the committee. I know it's all moves down. It's then March, but would you folks be interested in that? She'd be a better source than I am.
I'm going to call on Jesus, but I think, yes, flag that to Rich. And I think I've talked to this person on the phone before. She's very good.
Sarah, was that do you remember the?
Yeah, she's very knowledgeable. Yeah, I think she would be a real good speaker. Jesus?
One thing, thank you. One thing I would say, it does seem like without a crystal ball, we probably don't know what the likelihood of it passing either through the budget or through committee or at all. So maybe we should focus on not so much what we can't control or can't know, but instead, start working on a resolution now. I mean, it seems like just listening from the conversation that was being had in this committee, some of it is already written itself. It does seem, at least right now, like the committee is leaning towards, a resolved clause of supports good cause eviction and the, protections being added to market rate apartments. That's sort of a draft resolve clause. And one of the whereas clauses could be, well, they can't all be anecdotal. We do have at least one personal experience for a whereas clause of what it is like being in a market rate apartment, never really knowing what'll happen when it comes due, and having 60 days to potentially have to leave your home, or the relief that you get to stay. And then from there, build out, because even if this doesn't make it, or even if it does, and the committee can work together on that, this committee, being the housing committee of a community board, all members really should be able to speak intelligently about the phenomena that the residents of this district experience on housing matters. And so if everyone can take a little piece, learn a little bit, Even maybe not necessarily rely on speakers so much. Do a little bit of research first, and then once with that happens, and we can formulate intelligent questions, then bring the speaker in and see if they can add more. Because as we've seen, an individual member could go get a little bit of research, talk to a person, do a little bit of interviewing, things like that, and then bring some good information back to the committee. And then that way, everyone takes ownership of it, everyone learns from it, and increases their subject matter knowledge. Because as members of the housing committee, everyone should have a good command of the housing realities of people that live in this district. So yeah, whether it passes or not, and whether we need this for March or not, start working on it, I would say. And if you don't need it, well, then you'll have a little bit more time. If you do, well, at the very least, and it becomes moot, let's say it passes and you don't ultimately need the resolution, you will have gained that knowledge and you'll be able to have that as a housing committee member. Thank you.
Thank you. No, that sounds good. So I think what we'll do is Rich and I will circulate some of Sandra's research to the committee, so that everyone can sort of be on the same page, be informed, and we'll start thinking about the building blocks of a resolution. Maybe come up with it for the next meeting, maybe not, but this is definitely, I think, something we want to pursue, even if it doesn't work out for the timeline that the legislation sets for us. It's worth talking, writing about it, because it's obviously something that affects all of us who live in the district, and where housing in New York CV6 is always a challenge. So great. Does that sound good to everyone? Yeah, Sandra?
Yeah, I wanted to ask, Jesus, when you said, I love the idea of collecting the data, did you ever thought of how one would go about that? I mean, I know how to do it as an academic because I have the license to do it, but I don't know how to do it as a citizen of my community, I'm afraid. How would one pursue that?
Well, as an academic is a good place to start. Data is data, but it depends on what kind of data you're looking for. But generally, and again, I am not a specialist in housing policy. As a district manager, I sort of have to be very high level because I can't be an expert in housing and health and transportation and public and everything. No one who can. But one good place to start would be with some of the organizations that work on affordable housing issues in this city. And I know NYU has some research on housing. I think one of their graduate schools has some research on housing. So they publish a report every year, and they break it down by community district, which is always very helpful, because then you can know that the data that you have is very specific to this district. Like, let's say you want to know what the average, I'm sorry for my coughing, what the average income for people in this district is, or you want to know what the average type of housing for people in this district is. We can dig that up for you and send it along. And if you have other questions about, like, I'd like to know this, we can try and help. But your skills as an academic, I'm sure, will take you very far, because I don't know that there's necessarily a special kind of way to look for data as a community board member that is vastly different from what an academic might use.
Well, no, I was thinking even in terms of the, Eric brings up issues, it's what you want to do is have a long discussion with Eric or his neighbors, right? And maybe that's the way to go about it, in that informal way.
I think some of the resolution can be that way, and whatever statistics you can put in, that can only strengthen. But if you want to start off right now with largely anecdotal information, I don't see any harm in that. It's a draft. That's what drafts are for, and you can see what it looks like, and then try and find some data to back it up if possible.
Okay.
I just want to note too, we have a comment in the Q&A. Member of the public, Prince, very interested in helping with the resolution. So yeah, Prince, if please email the office. Alexander can put our office email in the chat. And this is really about, gathering the experience of people in our district, or, people who work in our district, who, spend time in our district. So yeah, if you could, reach out, share your experience or any, comments you have, definitely love to include you in that. Jesus?
One more thing related to that. One thing this committee could do, maybe at one of its future meetings, is hold a public hearing on this. Public hearings typically are only, community boards typically have public hearings only when they absolutely have to, like when a land use matter is before the board, statutorily there has to be a public hearing. And for most other matters, there doesn't have to be, so there isn't. But I do know that the city government is keen to have community boards have more public hearings on just topics that affect their community. It doesn't necessarily have to be a huge production, like it doesn't have to be excuse me, a round table where you get, high profile guests and, there has to be a moderator and it has to be a run of show, anything like that. It could just be, okay, at the next meeting, we are going to let the community know that if they want to come and talk about this particular legislation, if they want to come talk about their experiences regarding rent increases, if they want to come and talk to us about their, experience XYZ, that they can. That doesn't mean they will. Sometimes there's a public hearing, like for the budget, we hold a public hearing for the budget every year. Nobody comes, but maybe some people will. And that can be a way for you to get some information for your resolution. For example, you can say at a recent public hearing conducted by Community Board 6, many residents of this district testified to blah, 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 blah. And that's a way of putting some anecdotal information into your resolution that has at least the backing of having come from residents of this very district that you all represent. That's just an idea that you can talk about that with Rich. It doesn't mean the committee has to do that, but that's another idea.
Yeah, absolutely. And just seeing how much discussion this has generated in our small committee, I think it would probably be pretty well attended and the elected officials would probably attend. So I think that's a good idea, personally. Okay, I think, oh yeah, Sandra.
Oh, I just want to say I second it. I think it's,
oh, okay.
and that's all. I was just like, oh, right. It would be, that would really, also we'd really hear community voices, which this is just too silenced an issue.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so that's all.
Awesome. I'll flag to Rich. I have much to catch him up on. Okay, so next we'll move on to the chair's report. Oh, Jesus.
Sorry, one more thing.
Yeah.
Alex, did we ever send that New York Times video about this topic to the committee?
No, but I would be happy to send it after this meeting.
Okay,
I think
great.
it would be, yeah, I think especially in connection to this discussion, I think it would be helpful to have that as additional research and information for the topic, for the committee to discuss.
Great, yeah. So again, I can't follow every single issue, but I learned about this topic actually from a video that was produced by the New York Times. It's sort of they got sort of a comedian to kind of develop a humorous video to teach people about this. And although, there is more humor than you would expect in an educational video, it was very educational and sort of distilled this issue down to what's like, wow, okay, this affects me. I am interested in this. And so what we can do is we can send it to the committee, and it's about 12 minutes long, I think. But I think it's a good, if some of the stuff online some of the reading material is too dry, I think this might be a good way to kind of whet your appetite in an amusing way, and at least give you some basic grounding about what this legislation is for and why it's important.
Awesome. That sounds like a really good place to start. Yeah, I think I remember seeing that, but I could go back and look at it again.
Great.
Cool.
So yeah, Alex will send it tomorrow.
That sounds good. Okay, so moving on, there's no chair's report. If any member of the committee has any old or new business, please raise your hand. Great. So seeing no old or new business, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay,
Second.
from Michael, seconded by Neil. Okay, so seeing no further business, the meeting is adjourned at 7:52. Thanks all. I know it was a kind of a long one.
Have a good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks
Bye.
all. Bye.